The rain pounded against the windows, a relentless rhythm that mirrored the storm raging inside Emma. She had just returned from the funeral, her mother's casket now lowered into the earth, her final resting place. Everything felt hollow, yet a single object in the living room demanded her attention, a small, intricately carved wooden box. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Never open this until it's time, Emma. Emma's hands trembled as she touched the cold wood. She knew there was more to her mother's life than she had ever understood. Secrets, promises, regrets, all locked away, waiting. And she, now a 60-year-old woman who had endured heartbreak, poverty, and triumphs, felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. But she wasn't the one who would open it. Later that evening, her granddaughter, a bright and curious 12-year-old, wandered into the room. Her eyes fell on the box, and despite Emma's instinct to protect it, the girl's small hands reached for the latch. And with a soft click, the box opened. Inside lay letters, photographs, and a small velvet pouch. Emma's heart stopped. The first letter was addressed to her, not in her mother's familiar handwriting, but in a script that seemed almost ceremonial, deliberate. If you are reading this, my dearest Emma, it means the world has changed in ways you could not foresee. You must know the truth about our family, about the choices I made. Emma swallowed hard. The truth she had spent her entire life avoiding was about to be revealed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The box had been opened, and with it, a flood of memories Emma had long buried began to surface. She watched her granddaughter's eyes widen at the photographs and letters, the child's curiosity unstoppable. Emma felt a pang of guilt. She should have protected her, yet part of her wondered if this revelation was exactly what they both needed. The first photograph was of a young woman, barely older than Emma herself had been when she left home. Her mother, radiant and defiant, standing in front of a small, run-down house. Behind her, the streets of a city that seemed almost alive with whispers of opportunity and danger. The letters told a story Emma had never known. Her mother had been a woman of remarkable courage, a woman forced into choices no one should have to make. There were mentions of sacrifices made for family, of debts paid with tears and courage, and of a love that had ended in heartbreak. Emma traced the edges of the letters with her finger, feeling a connection she had missed her whole life. She realized that much of her own resilience, the strength that had carried her through abusive relationships, financial struggles, and the loss of friends, had been inherited, silently passed down through generations. One letter in particular caught her attention. It spoke of a secret that had shaped the family, a hidden truth Emma had never suspected. Her mother had written of a man, someone Emma thought she knew, whose life had intertwined with theirs in ways that would now demand answers. Her mind raced, trying to piece together fragments of memory, small whispers she had dismissed as imagination. Could the people she trusted most be connected to this secret? And if so, how deep did the roots of this truth go? As the night deepened, the storm outside intensified, mirroring the turmoil within Emma. She felt the weight of history pressing down, a reminder that the past never truly stays buried. And for the first time, she understood that the box wasn't just her mother's last wish. It was a key, unlocking not only secrets, but the path Emma herself had to walk. By the time her granddaughter finally fell asleep, Emma sat alone in the dim light, reading and rereading the letters. Her heart pounded with anticipation, fear, and a strange sense of destiny. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring questions she was not yet ready to answer, but questions she could no longer ignore. The morning sun barely pierced through the heavy curtains, casting the living room in a muted gray. Emma sat at the edge of the sofa, the letters spread around her like fragments of a shattered past. Her granddaughter, oblivious to the weight of the night's discoveries, hummed softly while drawing at the small table. Emma's mind, however, was elsewhere, deep in the corridors of memory and mystery. One letter, more fragile than the others, had revealed a name she recognized, a man she had thought was just an old family friend. The words were sharp and precise, hinting at betrayal, choices made in desperation, and a love that had been both forbidden and necessary. She felt a chill. Could the man she trusted most have been entwined in the web her mother described? Emma had learned to read between lines her entire life, the half-truths, the silence where honesty should have been. And now that instinct screamed at her, warning her that the past was about to collide with the present. Determined to understand, Emma decided to visit the old neighborhood where her mother had grown up. The streets were different now, yet some things had stayed the same. The cracked pavement, the tiny corner store, the scent of spices and smoke lingering in the air. Memories rushed back. Afternoons spent hiding in alleyways, nights listening to whispered secrets through thin walls. She stopped in front of the house in the photograph. The door was faded, the windows dusty, but the structure held a quiet dignity. Inside, she met a neighbor, an elderly woman who remembered her mother vividly. With every story shared, a new layer of Emma's mother's life was revealed. Courage, mistakes, sacrifices, and a love so profound it had shaped generations. By the time Emma left, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson. The weight of the letters and the visit pressed heavily on her heart. She realized that the secrets weren't just about her mother. They were about her, too. Her resilience, her choices, her identity were all part of a legacy she had never fully understood. That night, Emma sat by the window, staring at the darkening city. The storm from the previous night had passed, but a different kind of storm brewed within her. Questions, doubts, and the undeniable pull of truth. She knew that unlocking the box was only the beginning, and that the journey ahead would challenge everything she thought she knew about family, love, and herself. The next morning, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the letters demanded action. One name kept echoing in her mind, a man from her mother's past whose presence had been woven into the family story like a shadow. The letters hinted at love, betrayal, and choices made under impossible circumstances. Emma knew she had to find him. Her granddaughter, sensing Emma's unrest, stayed close as they drove to the outskirts of the city. The streets grew narrower, the houses older, and the air carried a faint scent of the past, smoke, spices, and memories long buried. Emma's heart raced with anticipation and fear. They arrived at a modest home tucked between two crumbling buildings. Emma paused, hesitant. Was this really the man her mother had written about? Taking a deep breath, she knocked. The door creaked open, revealing a man with eyes that mirrored her own, deep, searching, burdened with stories unspoken. He looked older than she had imagined, yet the presence of the past clung to him like a second skin. I'm looking for answers about my mother," Emma began, her voice steady despite the tremor she felt inside. "She wrote about you." The man's eyes softened, a mixture of guilt and recognition passing over his face. "I suppose we've been waiting for this moment," he said quietly. "There are things you need to know, truths that have been hidden for decades." Inside, he revealed fragments of the past, a love forbidden by circumstance, a promise broken by fear, and a secret that had shaped not only their lives, but generations to come. Emma listened, absorbing every word, every pause, every glance that carried the weight of history. By the time they left, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city. Emma felt the first stirrings of understanding. The pieces of her mother's life were falling into place, yet the full picture remained elusive. The man had spoken truths, but there were still questions that demanded answers, and Emma knew that finding them would be both painful and necessary. As they drove home, her granddaughter chattered happily about trivial things, but Emma's mind was elsewhere. She held the letters close, feeling the pulse of the past entwined with her present. She realized that her mother's legacy was not just about what was written, but what had been lived. And that legacy was calling Emma to confront the shadows she had long avoided. The night after meeting the man, Emma could not sleep. The letters lay open on the table, whispering secrets she had never known. Each word was a reminder that her mother's life had been far more complicated and courageous than Emma had imagined. Her mind replayed every detail from the conversation. The man had admitted to choices made out of fear, love, and necessity. He had been part of a secret that had changed the course of Emma's family forever. And now, decades later, Emma was left to grapple with the truth. She realized that understanding her mother meant confronting the past herself. Questions gnawed at her. Why had her mother kept this secret? What had she sacrificed? And most importantly, how did it shape the woman Emma had become? Determined to uncover more, Emma visited her childhood home. The familiar creak of the front door, the smell of aged wood and old carpets, and the echo of her own laughter from decades past made her heart ache. She searched every corner, hoping to find another piece of the puzzle. In the attic, beneath dust-covered boxes, she discovered a bundle of old journals. Her mother's handwriting filled the pages with raw honesty, tales of heartbreak, resilience, and choices that no one else could understand. Emma read late into the night, tears streaming down her face. She laughed, winced, and sometimes felt rage at the injustices her mother endured. Through the pages, Emma began to see herself, the strength, the determination, the moments of quiet courage, as a reflection of her mother's life. Every hardship she had survived was part of a continuum, a lineage of women who had fought for love, dignity, and survival. By dawn, Emma understood something crucial. The past was not meant to trap her, but to guide her. The unfinished business was not just hers, it was hers too. And now, she had the responsibility to reconcile the truth, to honor the sacrifices, and to continue the legacy of courage that had been entrusted to her. Days had passed since Emma discovered the journals, yet sleep remained elusive. Each night, she relived fragments of her mother's story, wrestling with emotions that spanned decades. There was love, betrayal, courage, and regret, all intertwined like threads of a tapestry she was only beginning to understand. Emma knew she couldn't move forward without confronting the people involved. The man from the letters had been one piece, but there were others whose choices had shaped her mother's life, and, by extension, her own. She made a list, names scribbled hastily in the margins of her journal, each one representing a chapter of the past that demanded resolution. Her first visit was to her mother's old friend, a woman named Lillian. Now in her 80s, Lillian's memory was sharp, and her eyes held secrets Emma had never seen before. Over tea, Lillian spoke with hesitation, weighing each word. She revealed hidden alliances, quiet sacrifices, and the pressures that had forced Emma's mother into decisions no one else could comprehend. Emma listened, absorbing every detail, and felt a growing sense of responsibility. The past was no longer distant. It was a living force, shaping her present and demanding that she act with clarity and courage. Later, Emma reached out to distant relatives, those she had barely known, piecing together fragmented stories of hardship and resilience. Each conversation brought new revelations, truths that were sometimes comforting, sometimes painful. She discovered that her mother's courage had not only protected Emma, but had also shaped the lives of people Emma had never met. By the end of the week, Emma felt both burdened and empowered. She realized that confronting the past was not about blame, but about understanding the choices, the mistakes, and the sacrifices that had defined generations. Sitting alone that night, Emma looked at the box that had started it all. She no longer saw it as a container of secrets, but as a bridge, connecting her to her mother, to the women who had come before her, and to the life she was determined to live fully, with honesty and courage. The letters and journals had opened doors Emma never thought she would walk through. Yet, as the days passed, she realized that some truths were still buried, hidden in the shadows of her mother's life. Secrets that, if revealed, could change everything she believed about family, loyalty, and love. One evening, while sorting through more photographs from the box, Emma noticed a face she didn't recognize. A young man standing beside her mother, smiling, but with eyes that seemed familiar. Something about him tugged at Emma's memory. She recalled snippets of conversations from her childhood, stories half told, fragments that didn't make sense until now. Determined to uncover the identity of the man, Emma began visiting old neighbors and friends of her mother. Each encounter revealed pieces of the puzzle, a hidden affair, a broken promise, and a decision that had forced her mother to live a life of secrecy and resilience. As the truth unfolded, Emma felt a mixture of anger and compassion. She understood why her mother had made the choices she did, and yet she couldn't ignore the pain those choices had caused. Every revelation was a reminder that courage often comes with a cost, and that love is rarely simple or straightforward. One night, Emma confronted a family member who had been silent for decades. The conversation was tense, filled with half-truths and lingering resentment. Yet, in that confrontation, Emma found clarity, a realization that understanding the past required facing it fully, without fear or denial. By the end of the week, Emma felt a strange sense of peace. The buried truths were finally coming to light, and with each revelation, she felt more connected to her mother, to herself, and to the legacy of strength that had been passed down. The journey was far from over, but Emma knew that she was ready to face whatever came next. Emma had spent weeks unraveling the threads of her mother's past, yet she sensed that the most significant revelation was still to come. The letters hinted at a final secret, one that her mother had guarded fiercely, even from Emma herself. One afternoon, Emma returned to the old wooden box, now worn from handling. Inside, she found an envelope she had overlooked before, sealed with a deep red wax stamp. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal, revealing a letter addressed to her granddaughter as well as herself. "Dearest Emma, my story is incomplete without the truth about your father," the letter began. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had always known fragments about her father, yet the full story had remained elusive. The letter spoke of love, betrayal, and choices that had shaped her very existence. The truth was staggering. Her father had not been the man everyone believed. There had been lies, secrets, and sacrifices made to protect Emma from a harsh reality. Her mother's decisions, though painful, had been guided by love and an unwavering determination to keep her family safe. Emma's granddaughter, curious and wide-eyed, listened as Emma read the letter aloud. The girl's hand found hers, a silent connection bridging generations. For the first time, Emma felt the weight of her mother's wisdom settle in her heart. She understood that love sometimes demands impossible choices, and that courage often looks like silence. The revelation left Emma both shaken and empowered. She realized that her mother's life, full of trials and resilience, had prepared her for this moment, for understanding, for forgiveness, and for embracing the legacy of strength she had inherited. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma closed the box and held it close. She knew that the journey was not just about uncovering secrets, but about carrying forward the lessons, the courage, and the love that had been passed down through generations. Emma felt the weight of the revelations pressing on her. The letters, photographs, and journals had painted a vivid picture of her mother's life, but there were still unresolved questions about her father, about the choices that had shaped her childhood, and about the family she thought she knew. Determined to confront the truth, Emma arranged a meeting with her father, a man she hadn't seen in decades. The encounter was tense, the air thick with years of unspoken words and buried emotions. Her father's eyes, once warm and familiar, now carried guilt, regret, and fear. "Emma," he began, voice shaking, "there are things you deserve to know, things I wished I could have told you sooner." Emma listened as he recounted the story, the sacrifices, the secrets, the love, and the mistakes. Each word was like a key unlocking a door in her heart, revealing emotions she had suppressed for a lifetime. She realized that her father, flawed as he was, had been acting to protect her in his own way. Tears streamed down her face as the truth unfolded. The pain, the confusion, and the anger that had shadowed her life began to make sense. Her mother's choices, her father's silence, the family's fractured history, it all came together like pieces of a puzzle. By the end of the conversation, Emma felt a profound sense of release. The confrontation had not been easy, but it had been necessary. Forgiveness, understanding, and acceptance began to replace resentment and doubt. She saw both her parents as complex human beings, shaped by circumstances, love, and courage. That night, Emma sat with her granddaughter, sharing stories she had never told. The girl listened intently, wide-eyed, absorbing lessons about resilience, love, and the importance of facing the truth, no matter how painful. Emma knew that the legacy of strength and honesty would continue, passed down to the next generation. For the first time in her life, Emma felt whole, not because the past had been erased, but because she had faced it, embraced it, and made peace with it. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over Emma's home. The box that had started it all sat on the table, now closed, but no longer a source of mystery. It had become a symbol of courage, resilience, and love. Emma reflected on the journey she had taken over the past weeks. From the discovery of her mother's letters to confronting her father and uncovering family secrets, she had faced truths that were both painful and empowering. Every revelation had brought her closer to understanding not only her parents, but herself. Her granddaughter ran into the room carrying a small notebook. "Grandma, I want to write our story too," she said with enthusiasm. Emma smiled, realizing that the lessons she had learned were now being passed on, a new generation ready to embrace truth, courage, and love. Emma picked up the box one last time, holding it close. She whispered a quiet thank you to her mother, feeling her presence and guidance. The journey had taught her that life's challenges are not meant to break us, but to shape us into stronger, wiser, and more compassionate people. As she placed the box on the shelf, Emma understood the real legacy her mother had left her. The ability to face life with honesty, to love without reservation, and to confront the past with courage. It was a gift that could not be measured in material wealth, but in the strength of character, the depth of understanding, and the bonds of family. Later that evening, Emma stood by the window, watching the city lights twinkle against the darkening sky. She felt a profound peace. The storm of secrets had passed, leaving clarity and a sense of purpose. Emma knew that the past would always be a part of her, but it no longer controlled her. She was free to live fully, love deeply, and pass on the lessons of resilience and courage to her granddaughter and all those who would come after. The box was closed, the secrets revealed, and Emma's heart was full. She had honored her mother, embraced her own life, and ensured that the legacy of love and strength would continue for generations. And in that moment, Emma knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.